Okay, we are live. The recording is on. Hey guys, it's Dr. Mike and Dr. Noah. I'm Dr. Noah. That's Dr. Mike over there. Uh, we want to talk about something that's really, really top of mind. So much so that we were sitting at lunch yesterday at the Mexican restaurant, and one of our other partners, chiropractic partners, said, "Did you see Dr. Oz has an intermittent fasting program now too?" So, Mike, sit on to Dr. Oz, it's it's hit the mainstream. But we want to talk about intermittent fasting, or another word that I actually like a little more, called time restricted eating. And it is all over the interwebs. It's flying around like crazy. Mike and I have been practicing this for, oh my God, almost as long as we've been doing paleo, right?
Yep. Yep.
But uh, it's a really important topic. In fact, personally, I think it is the single most important dietary intervention, if you want to call it that, you can do to progress your health forward.
Yeah.
Unless you have something like celiac disease where you have to absolutely avoid something, I believe this is more important than any paleo, primal, Jenny Craig, however, whatever name you want to put. I believe this concept, this idea, is the most important thing you can do and start immediately. And let an explanation why. Uh, Most health decisions and choices Mike and I make for our families are usually based on an ancestral model of health. And so, what does that mean? Well, when we're looking at intermittent fasting or time restricted eating, our ancestors, they didn't eat all day long. They didn't have the grocery store, the restaurant, the corner store, the refrigerator, the ice box. Uh, they had food when it was available. And sometimes there was no food available. So they did not eat all the time. Do you want to further that thought a little bit more, Mike?
Yeah. It modern society, which you can go back and check out our previous StreamYard that we did. Modern society, you have the ability to go and eat basically anytime you want, and ancestrally, they basically ate when they had food, but they would go to sleep when it got dark, and they would wake up when the sun came up. A lot of times they would not eat for 10, 12, 16 hours. So this is where this intermittent fasting came from. That's the origins of it. Go ahead, Noah.
Right. Yeah. So, like, ancestrally, the men would essentially hunt animal, and then they would kill the animal and eat everything, and they would eat it, and they didn't have salt or early on to really store things, so they ate everything. And then the women, beyond childcare, would gather nuts, seeds, bugs, little animals, things like that, and they ate when food was available. Like Mike said, they didn't eat constantly. I mean, think about people on a day and day basis. They wake up, they have some sort of breakfast. Then they might have a mid morning snack. Then they have lunch. Then they have an afternoon snack. Then they have dinner. Then they finish their evening with a bowl of ice cream. And they're literally eating from 6 in the morning till 11 at night, nearly the whole day, and only giving your body a little tiny window of rest and digest. And that's just not a good scenario to create health and wellness in the human individual. We need rest. And resting the digestive system is only where the beginning of how intermittent fasting or time restricted eating actually helps. It helps in so many other ways. We're talking about mitochondrial health. We're talking about blood sugar regulation. We're talking about being fat adapted. So you can use fat as fuel, which is more efficient than using sugar or being a sugar burner as instead of being a fat burning beast. And even more importantly, that and Mike and I are learning more and more now, just a little bit. And the studies are very new. Is that intermittent fasting also helps with the production of a molecule called NAD, and NAD is one of the most important molecules that helps gene repair. So time restricted eating or intermittent fasting has an enormous whole host metabolic benefit to your frame and your body and your being.
So this is really key. Is this repair element to time restricted eating or intermittent fasting, and this repair element is one of the great new frontiers in new frontiers where we we again in modern society we are not what's the word I'm looking for? We don't really look at repair and rejuvenate. And this is, for example, if you're eating, um, I want to say 3 hours before you go to bed, that's really a good indicator of giving the gut and the brain an opportunity to repair, because the repair only happens when you're resting and when you're sleeping. So when we eat at 11 o'clock at night and then go to bed at 11:30, the body then can't repair because it's got to digest, and that really interferes. Again, we have the ability with trackers to see how that impacts our sleep. So this is a really big one, and just to, you're starting to hit on this now, Noah.
Yeah, I think people are looking at intermittent fasting and time restricted eating as a weight loss strategy. And the truth of the matter is, it is an enormous weight loss and weight management um, strategy, because I believe when you time restrict, you eat less calories. But that's secondary to all the other beneficial biological processes are happening when you do this. So can you look at it as a weight loss strategy? 100%. I think most people are. But in the background, in your mind, we want you to look at it as a health promotion, a health and longevity strategy to make you the healthiest person you can be. So let's talk about what is we all we talked about is the benefits and what it can do and different names of it. But I believe that intermittent fasting starts at 12 hours, meaning you're not eating you're eating all your food, or you're not eating in a 12-hour window, meaning you stop eating at 7 and you don't eat again until 7 the morning. I believe that's where it starts. Do you have the same idea on that, Mike? Because that's where
Yeah,
I've been coaching
I,
all my patients.
I think it's a good starting point for somebody that wants to introduce this practice in their life. I think it's a good starting point. I think there is an ideal, and but this is 12 hours is a really good starting point.
Yeah, I think that most people, and even people that eat most of the day, can do a 7 to 7 window. Because let's face it, in that 7 to 7 window, you're literally sleeping for about 8 of those hours, right?
Right. Yep.
So that's where we encourage you to start. If you're interested in time restricted eating or intermittent fasting, I would start at a 12-hour window. In fact, when somebody comes into the office and says, Dr. Noah, I want to learn a little bit more about keto, or I want to go paleo, I say, well, master intermittent fasting first. Because if you can not eat for 12 hours or 14 hours or 16 hours, it's going to make any other dietary change you do that much easier. Now, most of the magic happens at how many hours, they say, Mike?
16, 16:8.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody says, or most of the experts say, that the 16-hour window is of rest is ideal, and 8 hours of an eating window, meaning um, 7 to 11, 6 to 12. So you're not eating in a 16-hour window. Now that's harder for most people, but it is definitely not impossible. You start with 12 hours, you progress to 13 hours, you progress to 14 hours, and you settle somewhere in that 16-hour range. Now, I'm not sure exactly what your window is, Mike, but mine is about I start really getting hungry around 14 to 15 hours. And I think that's one of the reasons why is because I wake up and I work out in a fasted state. So I get pretty hungry. So I generally, unfortunately, I get home pretty late from work. So I generally stop eating at 8 o'clock, which I don't recommend for people. And I don't start eating again till 10 or 11 in the morning. So it's 8 o'clock, I stop, and then I have a small like collagen bar, some collagen protein around 10:30, which is maybe 200 to 300 calories. And then Mike and I usually have lunch together, and then we have dinner with our families. And that's my rhythm. What, Mike? What's your rhythm?
I same thing. I get home. Usually get home. It's 8 o'clock, and try to finish eating at that 8:30, and then basically what I do is I don't eat again until 1 o'clock on days that I work, and 12ish on days that I don't work. So I'm looking at 15, 16 hours in general, and that has worked phenomenally well for me. Um, I'm generally not a breakfast person. So I really don't feel hungry in the morning. And with an espresso or a coffee in the morning, I'm actually good to go until 1 o'clock.
Yeah, that's a you bring up two good points in there, Mike. One is that water, black coffee, black tea,
Yep.
seltzer, something with no calories does not break the fast. So you can drink. We're not saying you can't drink. In fact, I wake up and have 2.5 glasses of water and a black decaf cup of coffee. But you can drink during this time. It's calories that you're trying to avoid. The other thing when you bring up coffee is there's going to be a question inevitably out there. Well, can I make a bulletproof coffee? Or can I put some MCT oil in my coffee? And the answer is probably yes, because MCT is purely fat.
Yep.
It doesn't affect your sugar and your glycogen stores, so you remain in a fasted state.
Right.
But do we really recommend that? I would say we don't really recommend that. And we are both fans of bulletproof coffee and have used them and use them regularly for different reasons. But if you want to truly intermittent fast, have your bulletproof coffee at 11 in the morning and then have your lunch at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
I think I'm a pretty good petri dish for experimenting on this, and I did bulletproof coffee for years. Um, and did not get the results that I got from just drinking black coffee. And the results were through the roof with black coffee. Not only in terms of weight loss, but reduction in inflammation. And that's where the magic that we're talking about happens. When you are not digesting, your body can then basically, it's like a little Pac-Man that goes up and eats all of the stuff that causes inflammation. So just for me, with years of dysregulation, that by cutting out even the bulletproof coffee, which I love, that I got even better results.
Right. The Pac-Man eating, what Mike is talking about is a bio called autophagy. And when you go into a fasting state, your body naturally starts cleaning itself up, repairing itself, and removing all those dysfunctional organelles and just packages them and it gets rid of them. So that's why it's so important. Something popped in my head, and it's something really interesting to me, and it took me a long time to realize this. But we talked about ancestral health. Um, Most people think that we need tremendous amounts of glucose for our brains, right? And our brain does use a lot of glucose and it uses sugar. So when we eat, we build up glycogen stores in our liver, and our body kind of uses that glycogen throughout the day. Well, our bodies evolutionarily had to create another energy source for us when food wasn't available. And that's where the genesis of the ketogenic diet comes from. When you don't eat, and you run through your glycogen stores, your body starts using fat for fuel and starts creating water soluble compounds called ketones. And ketones are a preferred fuel source for your brain and your heart. So when you do this intermittent fasting and you exercise a little bit beforehand and you're in that 16 hours or even longer, you start getting into that mode where you don't have any glycogen stores, you're using ketones, and you feel this lightness, you feel this energy in your brain, and that's because your body's using ketones. So this whole ketogenic diet and ketones is not a new phase. It is something that's been with us from day one, and now we're just realizing that we can utilize it for our biological benefit.
Absolutely. And your body, what you hit upon was, and I don't recommend that people be in ketosis all the time. You cycle in and out of ketosis, but I notice I can maintain ketosis for 6 or so weeks. But that being said, that 6 weeks, it's like things are so clear, sleep is so on point, but I don't think we're meant to be in ketosis all the time. Even during the day, I think we slip in, we slip out of ketosis, and there are a lot of people who will disagree with that, and that's okay. What I notice for myself, is that I can be in ketosis for a while, and then and then it's better for me to slip out.
And then we have a cauliflower gluten-free pizza, and we
Yes.
slip, we
Yes,
slip
we
right.
do. Yes, absolutely.
Or for me, a bowl of coconut ice cream.
There you go.
But so where to begin? Now, the only real contraindications that we can see for intermittent fasting were if you're pregnant, because women making a baby don't want to restrict calories, and children. Children don't really have the need to intermittent fast, particularly younger kids, because their brains are just growing and their bodies are so growing rapidly. We don't really recommend intermittent fasting. But for everybody else, uh, we highly recommend starting with that 12-hour window. Now, someone with diabetes who has real sugar dysregulation problems may have a hard time, but it's not impossible for them either. And starting at 12 hours and utilizing that sleep window is a great start. And if you only can do 12 hours forever, you are doing your body a huge benefit. And if you can make that 16 or somewhere, that's great too. And and some people like Mike and I, some of the people we follow the most, they've basically whittled down their eating window to a 4-hour window too, and that's a whole other strategy, and that's takes a lot of work, and that's pretty steadfast, but that is a potential or possible option as well.
And I think that personally, for me, I don't know if I could do that. I actually haven't attempted that. I know you're starting to get into, as opposed to intermittent fasting, actually fasting.
Right.
And I know you have that practice. I've done it. I don't feel the best if I fast completely, and do 24 or 48 hours, which is the most I've done. And it really, it takes a lot. It's funny. It takes a lot more discipline for me to do that, because I enjoy eating.
Yeah, I do too. And intermittent fasting is a way to enjoy eating more as well. So we highly encourage you to start at a 12-hour window. What were you going to say, Mike?
Yeah, I know you've done some stuff with Prolon
Yep.
and that, where you're really like, what is that called? Fasting mimicking
Fasting
diet?
mimicking diet.
Yeah.
Right. We're at 600 calories a day for 5 days.
Yeah, and that's taken intermittent fasting to that next level, where you're really giving the body the opportunity to completely regenerate and restore. And that's what this really comes down to. We've got to take those times where we give the body the opportunity for it to heal itself, because it will heal itself until our last breath. The body will look to heal itself. So,
Great point. We are definitely made to heal,
mhm.
without a doubt. And like I said, and like we've said, uh, we want a discussion. If you've had success with intermittent fasting, please leave us a message. If you have more questions on intermittent fasting, please leave us a message. Or if you are confused about intermittent fasting, please leave us a message. Or if we totally said something that's totally not correct, please leave us a message so we can
Yeah,
go back and correct
leave
it as
a
well.
message below right there below. Yeah, and we'd be glad to answer you. If you have any questions about it? It's a great topic for discussion. And again, it's just like what we talked about last week. It's something that is relatively simple that you can do that will really, I think, will impact your health. And just as an aside, my daughter, who is a high level soccer player, has started intermittent fasting. She's got the app. She tells us, and what she notices, because she trains like a beast, is that her six pack, which she has become even more defined, where she has lost that inflammation and allows her to train and participate in an even higher degree than she is. So pretty
Great
interesting.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, more and more elite athletes are adopting it as well. Now that if you've never heard of it before, and I'd be surprised if you did, your reticulating mechanism in your brain will definitely notice it, and you'll see it everywhere across the board. We highly recommend it. Please leave us questions. We love doing this. Look for us next Thursday as well, and be awesome and never unawesome.
Ciao, guys.